Welcome to our course, Excel Fundamentals, Formulas for Finance. It can be a little bit overwhelming in Excel sometimes because there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, formulas and functions in the software, and it's hard to know which ones are the best ones to use within the finance profession. So this course effectively filters and sorts through all of those formulas and functions to focus you on the ones that are the most important for financial analysis. One of the other things that we've included in this course, which you may find incredibly useful, is this summary sheet that we're bringing up on the screen right now. There's some really helpful notes about the various functions in here, as well as some of the most common keyboard shortcuts that we find we use day in and day out. We've also taken all of those useful formulas and functions that get used in finance and put them together into categories or families that make sense. So we're going to look at pricing functions, aggregation functions, lookup functions, and a family of date functions, as well as a lot of functions which get used for return analysis, like NPV, IRR, XMPV, and XIRR as well. This course will not only explain the functions, but it will also show you the most common application of these functions so you can understand exactly how and where people use them. We also look at some of the nuances of these functions so you can understand some of the pros and cons of selecting one over another. As we mentioned earlier, the entire library of functions available in Excel can be very overwhelming. This course will save you immense amounts of time by helping you sift through, focus only on the functions which are the most effective within the finance industry. There's lots to cover, so let's get in there and get started. So let's start off by discussing some of the learning objectives for this course so you can understand exactly what you will gain from your valuable time that you've invested in this course. Now, we discussed in the last video that we've organized these Excel functions into groups or families that make sense. The first one for us to discuss is the basic functions. So these get used typically to do statistical analysis on data sets, and this is going to be one of our foundational building blocks for the course. We're then going to look beyond these statistical functions and look at functions that get used to aggregate or summarize some of the results and group them in different way using aggregation functions. Now, a course like this would not be complete without a discussion of lookup functions. Not only are we going to discuss some of the newest lookup functions available in Excel, we're going to talk about some of the older ones as well. Why? You're going to encounter older legacy files with these functions in them, and you need to know how to audit them. We're also going to discuss date functions. Date functions can be really overwhelming. There can literally be hundreds to choose from. We're going to focus on a small group that can allow you to easily get 95% of the things done within the finance profession. We're also going to be discussing how to calculate various returns. We're going to look at the MPV and XMPV function, as well as the IRR and XIRR function, to make sure that you know the difference and know how to choose the one that's most appropriate in all cases. And finally, as we walk through various parts of this course, we're going to be discussing some more advanced custom number formatting so you can understand how to properly format numbers as well as dates. Lots to cover in this course, and a lot of it is really fun. Let's jump in there and get started. Hi, my name's Duncan. I'm happy to be sharing this course with you. Excel can be quite overwhelming, and there can literally be just too many functions and formulas to choose from. I've used Excel for over 20 years in my career, and I've always enjoyed the time that I've spent with Microsoft Excel. A lot of the things that we'll be presenting in this course were things that I had to figure out myself along the way. One of the things I always like to do with these courses is try to teach you all the things that I wish I knew 20 years ago when I was starting out and when there was no CFI. So you're really going to find that this course is filled with powerful pro tips and advice on how to use Excel quickly and efficiently to get into the spreadsheets and get what you want out of them as quickly as possible. One of the key things with Excel is that you want to have a large vocabulary of functions that you know and understand. That way you can always be selecting the right one for the particular job or circumstance that you're encountering. The time that you spend investing in this course will really help you save much more time in the future as you're able to quickly sift through the hundreds of functions in Excel to focus on the ones which are going to help you get the job done the quickest. So I'm excited to share this time and some of my experience and advice with you over the course of these lessons. I look forward to getting into it, and let's get in there and get started. Now, if you've taken one of our Excel courses before, you've definitely probably heard us talk about the advantages of using the keyboard. In particularly, it's used extensively in the finance industry for a few reasons. Let's discuss here some of the standard reasons why people choose the keyboard over the mouse. First of all, it saves time, makes you more efficient. It also makes you more agile. You're easily available to move around the spreadsheets quickly and easily. The other thing is that it's pretty fun because you're going to be really efficient and you're going to be learning a new skill. But for me, the keyboard is more than that. You need to think about yourself and your computer as a team. Your brain is fast. The computer's brain, i.e. its processor, is also really fast. What's the slowest part of the system? The place where you interact with the computer. If you're using the mouse for that interaction, then you're wasting enormous amounts of time. The keyboard allows you to get your thoughts and commands into the computer as fast as possible so that you can move really quickly through your work. So one of the things that we really want to challenge you with in this course is to not use your mouse. And we're going to be showing you lots of keyboard use and showing you lots of shortcuts. It's going to feel really awkward and inefficient at the beginning. Promise you, if you invest time in it, you will thank yourself later as you will be a very efficient person in Microsoft Excel if you persevere with the keyboard. Let's jump in and get started with some shortcuts. In this quick chapter, we're going to look at some of the most basic functions that can be used on a dataset in Microsoft Excel. By working on a nice, small, manageable dataset, we'll be able to see exactly how these different common functions are working. The best part is that all of these functions work equally as well and just as easily on large datasets. We'll be looking at really common functions that get used for statistical analysis in Excel, like minimum, maximum, average, and median. We're also going to be looking at rounding functions and some of the subtle nuances that are involved in those functions as well. Finally, we'll be looking at some functions in Excel that can allow you to take out the largest, second largest, and third largest entry in a dataset without even sorting the underlying data. We've got lots to cover, and we're excited to jump in. We'll see you there. Now, as you can see by looking down here, we are on the pricing tab or the pricing worksheet. And to move between worksheets, just as a reminder, remember that you can hold down the control key and then use page up and page down to move between those tabs. So let's get familiar with the data set that we're going to be working with. As you can see right down here, we have some invoice data. On each individual invoice, we can see the item that was sold and the price that it was sold at. And this is a nice sized little data set for us to work on. All of the functions that we're going to experiment will work on this data set and will work equally as well on larger data sets. Now, it'll be really nice for us to work on this data set because we'll be able to see all of the data here and then all of the output calculations over on this side. So it'll make for a really nice dashboard. Now let's begin in this area of the spreadsheet here, where we simply want to calculate the minimum, maximum, average, and the median for the data set. So to calculate the minimum, let's pop into the cell here and put equals min, and we're going to open a bracket. Now we'll use the left arrow just to go over here to the top of the data set. Now to get all the way down really quickly, we're going to use Control-Shift down like this, which will select to the end of the numbers, and then we don't even have to close the brackets. At this point, we can just hit Enter. We're done. Now to save ourselves some time, we're going to want to take this formula we've just put in and then copy it downwards. So let's select down using the Shift key and the down arrow and then hit Control D for a fill down. Now if we pop into this cell and hit F2, we can obviously see there's a problem. Since the references are moving, we need to go back to this original cell here and lock the cells down. So let's actually do this completely with the keyboard. Let's go into this top cell here, tap F2, and now we can move with the left arrow a little bit over to here, hold down the Shift key and use the left arrow again to highlight all of these references, and now just tap the F4 key once. You can see what it does is it puts dollar signs in front of the columns and the row references. In fact, if you were to tap the F4 key a few times, you can see it cycles through all of the different options that you have for locking these cells. But what we want is we want the references locked to the columns, for instance, $D, and to the rows like $6, and then we can hit enter. So now that we have this first one locked, let's highlight from that first cell, use the shift key to select down, and now hit Control D for a fill down. Now if we go to the bottom cell and tap F2, we can see that the reference has been completely locked and it's working as expected. So now we have all of these cells referencing the data set perfectly. So we just need to change the function name. The first one is fine because we can see we have a min function in there. But let's tap F2 for the second cell here and just use the left arrow to go over and change this to a max and then hit enter. For this one, we can hit F2 and we want to use the left arrow. We want to delete out the word min and replace it with average and hit enter. For this last one, it's going to be the median. So let's just delete out this and put in median like that. Hit enter, we're all done. So it's always a good idea to double check your work. Let's go back into the first cell and we're going to check the function name and the cell references. So we tap F2, we can see a min function and the correct data set. Second cell, max, correct data set again. Here we have an average and it's grabbing the data set. And then finally, a median. It all looks perfect. So we've already been able to learn a little bit about the data set, even from these basic functions. We know that the data ranges from a minimum of 90 up to a maximum of 415. We have an average of 267 and a median of 240. Let's jump ahead to the next video where we're going to look at some rounding functions down here in this particular area. We'll see you there. So as we mentioned, we're now going to go and fill in this section of the spreadsheet here. But before we do, let's take a closer look at this average of 267, which is up above. Now, even though this is showing up here as 267, there may be some digits after the decimal place that we want to see. In fact, it's pretty easy for us to increase the number of decimals. Let's go into this cell. We could go up here to the home menu, and then we could simply click right here for increase decimal or decrease decimal. Now, if you were with us for the previous Excel course, Excel Fundamentals Quick Start Guide, you would have remembered that we actually added increase decimal right up here and decrease decimal up here inside our quick access toolbar. If you're interested in learning how to do that, definitely take a look at that course. So with increase decimal right up here in our quick access toolbar, we can tap the Alt key and you can see Alt 1 is going to activate that shortcut. So we can just hit Alt 1 a few times like this until we get 4 digits after the decimal. So now we're seeing the average for the data set with a little bit more precision. Now we may not want to see all of this precision. In fact, let's experiment with a little bit of rounding down here so we can bring the average into these cells, but round it off a little bit. And as you can see, we've set up a little bit of a template for you. So we're going to round to this number of digits, 2 digits, 1 digit, 0 digits, etc. And let's start in this cell right here. So in this cell, we can tap equals and just start typing in ROU. And as soon as we see the function names come up below, now we can use the up and down arrows until we get to round. Once we get on that round function, hit the tab key. It will complete the function name and open the bracket for us. The first thing it's asking for is the number. So let's use the up arrow to go here to average. We want to lock that reference. So let's tap the F4 key. And now that's locked. Now we put in a comma. Now it's looking for the number of digits. For the number of digits, let's use the left arrow to get over here to get the 2, and then we can hit enter. So now that we've successfully locked down the average, which is referencing, we can copy it downwards and save ourselves lots of time. Let's select from here all the way down and hit Control D to copy it down. And always a good idea to check our work. So let's go down to this bottom cell, tap F2, and we can see this reference locked perfectly, but this red reference on the left has traveled down as we've copied it. Wonderful. So let's look at what this round function is doing for us. When we ask for 2 digits, as you can see, we're seeing 2 digits after the decimal here. For instance, it's rounding to the nearest penny. So then in this next example, when we ask for 1 digit, it's rounding to the nearest multiple of 10 cents, like 10 cents or 20 cents, for example. And then here, when we ask for 0 digits, it's rounding to the nearest whole number. In this case, 267, or it could have rounded up to 268. Now, most people, when they use the round function, they will either use a 0 or a positive number. A lot of people don't actually know that you can use negative numbers with the round function. So in this case, when we ask for a -1, it's rounding to the nearest 10. And here with a -2, it's rounding to the nearest 100, like 300, for example. So it's really nice to be able to do some rounding in Excel. As we mentioned, you don't always need this kind of precision in your spreadsheets and your financial analysis. And down here, by using the round function, we have a lot of flexibility on the number of digits. What we're going to do now is hop into the next video. We're going to look at some of the highest priced items here, and down below, some of the lower priced items. Let's jump into it. We'll see you there. So as we mentioned, we definitely want to fill in this area over here, look at some of the high-priced items, and below it, some of the lower-priced items. Before we do, let's go over here and take a look at the average. We've left a lot of precision showing in this number. We don't necessarily need it, so let's decrease the decimals there. And as you can remember from a previous lesson, let's look up here, and we can use Alt-2 to decrease the decimal in our quick access toolbar. So Alt-2 a few times, just like this, will decrease it back down to 267. Now, if we wanted to go over here and look at the highest priced item, we already know what the price is. It's right here. We've calculated the maximum as $4.15. Similarly, down here, the top lowest priced item would be $90 as shown over here. But more importantly, what we're really after here is the second highest priced item or the third highest priced item. We need to know how to calculate those. In fact, this is something relatively common that people really struggle with in Excel. If you ask them for the second or third highest priced items, most people would go over to this original data set here and start sorting it and then counting down to get to the second or third. We have a much better way. As a general rule, it's always best practice to leave the original data untouched and just extract what you want for it without manipulating it with a sort. So the function we're actually going to use to get the first, second, third highest priced item is the large function. So let's just type in equals LA, and already we can see it come up down here, large. So we want to use the down arrow to get to the word large, and then hit that tab key, which will complete the function name and open a bracket for us. It's first of all asking for the array. So we're going to use the arrow to go over here, Control-Shift down, and that's selected all the data. Now we're going to put in a comma, and now it's asking for K, which is not very descriptive, but K is really the rank. So we're going to put in here a rank of 1, and we're going to reach over and grab this cell, and then we can hit Enter. Now you can probably guess what we're going to do next. We're going to pop into this cell here, tap the F2 key. Remember, we want to lock that reference down. So we're going to highlight across here by using the Shift key, tap the F4 key once. So we've locked the range for the data, but we've left that red cell over here unlocked so that we can copy that one downwards. Let's hit Enter, and now highlight down like this using the Shift key and do a Control-D for a fill down. So let's check our work quickly. Down to the bottom cell, we can tap F2. We can see the range for the data is completely locked, but this red cell has nicely referenced downwards as we've copied it. It looks perfect. Now here's what we're going to do next to save a bunch of time. Let's copy all of these cells. First of all, we're going to select them, Control-Shift down. We're going to do a copy, Control-C, down into these cells, and do a paste. Now, as we can see over here, we've selected all of these cells. We could hit Control-F on the keyboard, which brings up this dialog box for Find and Replace. But then we'd have to click over here to get onto the Replace tab. Let's hit Escape and instead try Control-H, which gets us straight into the Replace tab right away. So we want to find Large and then hit Tab and then replace it with Small. Now we can use the Tab key to get down here to Replace All and then hit Enter. And it's replaced 5 replacements. Perfect. So let's do a quick check. We can see here the lowest priced item is showing up with a price of 90, which is exactly aligned with the minimum here. Amazing. So let's do a couple more checks. If we go into the second item, we can see the small function is grabbing the correct data set and it's grabbing the number 2. Down here, correct data set, it's grabbing the number 5. So we've already been able to do some really basic quick analysis on our data with the min, max, average, and median. We know how to do some basic rounding over here, and we know how to use the large and the small functions to grab some of the highest and the lowest priced items. There's been a lot for us to explore in this tab. Let's jump forward to the next lesson and we'll move over to a new tab. See you there.